So this is a compound light microscope. This allows you to look at samples much more closely than you would with a dissecting microscope. To turn it on, some of these microscopes have a switch on the back to turn on the light. This one just has a dial on the left-hand side to turn the light on, and as you're turning it on, you'll see the light come on the bottom. I don't turn it up the whole way, but you can adjust that as you go along. So the next thing you want to do is the left eyepiece here will have two lines that you want to line up, and that will allow the focus to be the same in both eyepieces. The person before you may have adjusted this to their specific eye. This one has a 0, and that's what you want to line up with the line. The next thing you want to do is the eyepieces move according to the width of your eyes. So you want to look in here, and right now when I look in, I realize the light is very bright. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. You want to adjust these to your eye width. And those are the basics of this. The next thing we'll have to do is make a microscope slide. So on this leaf here of this English ivy, we can see there is a lesion. And if you look very closely with your eyes, you can see tiny, tiny little black dots. Those are the fungal fruiting bodies. When we look at them under the dissecting microscope, we can see what they look like on the outside, but they have spores inside of them, and those spores are what allow us to identify the specific fungus that's causing these leaf spots. So what I'm going to do here is under the dissecting microscope, so I can see the individual fruiting bodies, I'm going to pick off individual fruiting bodies, put them on a microscope slide, so I can then identify the spores. There are 4 things you're going to need to make a microscope slide. You'll need the actual slides here. You'll need cover slips, a tool to pick from the sample that you're going to be looking at, and then a drop of water. So I'm just going to go ahead and start making a microscope slide as I would. So you put your drop of water on the slide first. Usually when I take from a sample, if I'm taking a small fruiting body or something, I'll do this under the dissecting scope, but I can see the fruiting bodies with my naked eye here. So I take a small little sample here, tap it into the drop of water. I usually take a couple. And then you'll take the microscope's cover slip and gently place it on the drop of water. So now we have our slide with the tiny pieces of sample on it, and we're going to put that under the microscope. All right, to put the slide under the microscope, each microscope's a little bit different, but there's a way to secure the slide in so it doesn't move around. So this one you just pull here, put the slide in, and then it's secure. And to move the microscope slide around, over here on the right side, you have your X and Y axis, and this just allows you to move around that slide. So I previously turned my light off. I'm going to turn the light on. I'm going to make sure I'm in the middle of the slide here. And a little trick is, if you look really closely at the slide, you'll be able to see some of those leaf pieces. And once you see those lit up, that means that you'll be able to see them in your objective lens. So you want to start on your lowest magnification here. These objective lenses have their magnification on them, but generally the shortest one is going to be the lowest. So you'll make sure your eyepieces, your ocular lenses fit your face. I'm going to turn the light down a little bit. And then you'll just adjust this until what is on the slide comes into focus. So right now, those little pieces of leaf are in focus. And to zoom in on a compound microscope, you have to physically change these objective lenses. So once you're in focus at the lowest magnification, you'll gently turn this to the next highest magnification and readjust your focus. And then go to the next highest magnification, readjust your focus. A compound microscope has a coarse focus and a fine focus. And as you go up in magnification, you may want to start using your fine focus. It's more sensitive. When you change samples, you always want to go back down to the lowest objective lens before you take the sample off. If not, you may run into a problem where you actually hit the slide with the objective lens, and we don't want that to happen. And then to take the slide out, you simply release it and take it out. All right, so for this video, we've seen the fungal fruiting bodies under the dissecting microscope, and we've picked them off using our forceps onto the microscope slide here, and we want to actually be able to see those spores that were in those fruiting bodies. And this allows us to view the sample at a higher magnification. So the first thing we're doing here is looking at 10x, and what I'm seeing here just looks like plant debris. This is not zoomed in far enough to actually see the spores. So I'm going to get it in focus here at 10x. I'm going to change my objective lens, so we're zoomed in further. And here I can start to see the spores, but they're still quite small. I'm going to get it in focus here, zoom in once more, and here you can see the spores clearly and what they look like. I'm going to zoom around a little and look at a few more of them. Another tip I like to do is just to conserve slides. I'll put 2 or 3 samples on the same slide. You don't have to do this, but if your slide is pretty tidy, it's easy to look at 3 different samples on it. So I just basically put 3 samples on here, and once you put these under the microscope, you can slide to all 3 samples using the X and Y adjuster. Another tip is when you're picking up the microscope slides, try to hold them by the edges so you don't get your fingerprints all over them. And same thing with these cover slips. Sometimes it's difficult because they stick together and you may have to peel them apart, or you drop them. That happens. Just try to pick them up by their edges.